welcome to our NCO webinar. It's 4:30 on Friday and it's fantastic to be back with you again. I'm Kath Arledge, I'm the Artistic and Educational Director of NCO. And one thing you might not know actually about me is that half my life is at NCO and half the rest of my life is with the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, where I am a violinist. And it's at the CBSO that I met these next two guests that we've got with us today on our webinar. We have the amazing Mirga Gražinytė-Tyla, who is the music director and principal conductor of the CBSO. And we have Jonathan Bloxham, who was her assistant at the CBSO, but also has conducted NCO on many occasions and was actually in NCO. Hello, everybody. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Great. So there they are. Now, let me tell you how to engage with the webinar, just in case any of you haven't been before. At the bottom of your screen, there is a little Q&A button. That's how you ask your questions to these guys. So anything you're interested in asking, type away in there. And there's going to be some polling, some things to vote on. So those will just pop up randomly during the webinar, and we're going to have a bit of fun voting to find out some secrets about these amazing musicians. So I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourselves. Could you start, Jonathan? Could you go?
Absolutely. So yeah, my name's Jonathan Bloxham, and I'm a conductor, which right now is an interesting job to be done because, of course, we don't make sound any of the time anyway. But of course, while we can't all meet, we're really the most silent of all the musicians. And I was a cellist before I was a conductor, and so I played in the cello section of NCO. From the age of about 11 till 14, I think I was in almost all the orchestras. And those were perhaps some of the most amazing moments of my upbringing and childhood. And I definitely would not be a professional musician or a conductor if I had not been an NCO. So actually, I think it's been one of the most integral parts of my whole journey. And it's so great to be involved now.
And there's a little picture of you.
Yeah, I think I looked much cuter back then, that's for sure.
How old were you then, Jonathan?
I think that must be, so I'm at primary school. I went to a state primary school in Wickham, which is near Newcastle in Gateshead in the northeast. And so I just had normal lessons from the local music service. And that cello is definitely too big for me at that age. That's cool. So maybe I must be, I don't know, 9 or 10, I think.
Great. And Mirga, could you introduce yourself for us?
Yes, Kath, thanks. My name is Mirga, and everything else is sort of a little bit scary to pronounce, but I come from Lithuania, and in Lithuanian we say Gražinytė-Tyla. So for 4 years now, I am music director of City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra. It feels like as if it was much more than 4 years already, working with these incredible musicians. Kath is one of those. And yeah, my parents are musicians as well in Lithuania. My mother is a pianist and my father is a conductor. He was my conducting teacher, the first one as well. And I guess through their lives and through the experience I had as a child, I came to conducting. And here I am, I think 9 years old. I was singing at a competition.
So you were a big singer. You were more of a singer than an instrumentalist when you were growing up, isn't that right?
Yeah, so singing in Lithuania in general is important, and many people do that. And as a child, I was singing a lot of solo stuff. And here we are with Jonathan together in the CBSO Center.
Yeah. So the great thing is that these guys are friends. In fact, we're all friends, which is lovely to have the camaraderie of three musicians together. So we have our first questions coming in. So lots of people have asked, what made you want to be a conductor? So Jonathan, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. You know, there's kind of all the people want Hollywood stories. Like I always wanted to be a conductor since I was a little kid. And actually for me, that wasn't the case. I just loved symphonic music and I grew up in orchestras. And actually when I was in my early 20s, I turned to chamber music more and played in a piano trio for many, many years. But at the back of my head was the gathering of people, the whole group together is one of the most exciting things. And I think as I loved that kind of energy that you share in a big ensemble like that, that's kind of what drew me towards conducting.
What about you, Mirga? Why did you choose conducting?
It is a little bit a similar case like Jonathan's, because I was not planning to become a conductor, or there was not a moment when I said, now I want to become this. It sort of rather all happened from singing, then conducting choruses and singers, and then conducting orchestras. And the most exciting part, I think, is this gathering of people together and the team spirit in best case, which inspires so much.
Great, fantastic. We've got another question from Kate Broadbent. Did either of you had a sort of one moment in your life when you thought, I want to be a conductor, or was it something that kind of sort of gradually evolved? Jonathan, do you want to take that one?
Well, I suppose I started conducting a little bit now and then in my early 20s. And the way that I started was I basically invited loads of friends to get together in a church or in a little venue in London. And we had massive I call them massive sight reading parties. So, you'd often do that as little quartets. So instead I decided to do it on a massive, much bigger level. And actually, they were so much fun, but also somehow becoming a conductor is a really strange thing. So I asked my friends, like, does this work? Is it okay? Do you think I should do this? And actually,
that's very brave to ask your friends that.
It is. I mean, I don't.
Did they really say yes?
They did. I mean, I wouldn't ask orchestras that now, perhaps, Kath, but definitely back then they were supportive. And so actually, the friends who I listened to anyway, and I trusted them.
Oh, look, we've got a poll. Our first poll has arrived. Okay, it's true or false, and it's about Jonathan, so we can learn a little bit more about Jonathan. So, true or false? Jonathan plays the accordion. Jonathan was a very competitive squash player as a child. Jonathan loves tomato-flavoured crisps. Jonathan has 4 hair colours in his beard. Nobody's voted for that yet. And Jonathan cannot drive a car. Okay, now I don't know the answers to all those questions. So we'll come back, we'll see what everybody votes for. And then Mirga, you can vote too. And then we'll come back and see what we think is true. So we have a question from Maya Parker for you, Mirga. Do you ever name your batons? Have you ever given them a name? Because we know Natalia, who conducts a lot of our orchestras, calls her baton Nick the Stick. And you have to watch and listen to Nick the Stick at all times. Do you ever name yours?
This was not the case yet, but it's such a great idea. I should really think about how to name my batons.
Maybe we should throw that out. If any of you out there have got a name that you think Mirga should give to her next baton, then send them in, and we'll share some, and we can pick one by the end of the webinar.
My favorite baton is right now broken. The end is, but I still was using it. Maybe this can influence the name.
Something that's been a bit broken. So do you keep them even when they're broken? Because I know they break quite often in concerts, don't they? And
I discovered a few years ago sort of a baton which I ordered in Japan to to get here, and I just love the weight of it and the part you have in your hand. But it seems to be it's maybe already the third one where just a little bit of top after a few months or half a year. I lose it.
Wow. I'm impressed they last half a year. That's amazing. Okay, so we've got the results of our poll. So in the lead is Jonathan was a very competitive squash player as a child at 34%. Then tying at 22%, Jonathan loves tomato-flavoured crisps and Jonathan cannot drive a car. 16% think you play the accordion and 5% think you have 4 hair colours in your beard. So drum roll, Jonathan, can you tell us the truth?
So I don't drive a car. I don't drive. I do have 4 hair colours in my beard: white, black, red, and grey, or ginger anyway. I like tomato crisps a lot. I don't know why. Actually, I just really like crisps. My flatmate goes out and asks what you want from the shop, and the answer is crisps always. There's something about the texture. I don't know. I did play squash when I was young, but I wasn't that competitive. But I was reasonably competitive. And then, what was the final one?
Jonathan plays the accordion.
I don't play the accordion, no. I mean, it's an amazing instrument. And I was actually meant to be doing a concert in April in Germany with a wonderful accordionist, Ksenia Silverova. but we'll have to doing Piazzolla on the Four Seasons on the accordion, but hopefully that will happen another time.
Brilliant. Okay, so Mirga, for you, Amelie Benton wants to know, how are you able to read the scores at the same time as conducting?
When I was still studying in Graz, my first place I started to study conducting, I had a friend, young conductor as well, who said, you shouldn't have your head in the score, but you should have the score in your head. So this is actually maybe the best advice to manage the both things. If I come to a rehearsal or a concert and only read the score, this is not the most comfortable situation. Much better, or many conductors conduct by heart, and this is a great thing, because in order to do that, you have really to know the piece, to know every part, and to know the whole arc of the work.
Great, brilliant answer. Thank you. So Chen White has asked, what do you like most about conducting, Jonathan? And we have another poll. So just before you answer that, this is a poll about Mirga and her pets, okay? You can vote on this, Jonathan. So when she was young, she had the following pets: a cat, a rabbit and a dog and a few fish, 2 rabbits and several hamsters, a dog that had 7 puppies, or a tortoise and 2 geckos. So we're going to find out a secret about Mirga in a minute. But could you answer that? What do you most like about conducting, Jonathan?
I suppose it's a little bit back to why I started. It's that exceptional sharing of energy. I mean, I think in the past, some conductors, if any of you watch like old conducting videos, the kind of old maestri of the past, it's quite, sometimes it can be a little stern and a bit kind of, a bit like a teacher and a bit like bit dictating and telling you what to do. And I think we all agree here, that's not really what conducting is. It's really about drawing people together and drawing all the best energy out of them for the performance. And so if you sense that everyone is playing their heart out, that's the most exciting kind of place to be, right in the middle of everyone really just playing their best and with heart and love.
Fantastic. I should tell you that we've already had, in 10 minutes of being live, we've had 63 questions for you. My goodness. So apologies to all of you guys that whose questions we can't answer. We're trying to, we've got people behind the scenes trying to group questions together so we answer as many as we can. So the poll is in the lead. Most people think that you had a dog that had 7 puppies, Mirga. But then behind that, very close behind that, they think you had a tortoise and 2 geckos. Then behind that, a dog and a few fish. Behind that, 2 rabbits and several hamsters. And at the very bottom, a cat, a rabbit and a dog. What's the answer, Mirga?
Well, I'm afraid I have to disappoint you all, because the really true answer is so much less exciting than So I actually, by myself, I only had a cat. But in our family in Lithuania, because I have a sister, she's 10 years younger, and a brother, he's 14 years younger. We had, in fact, later on, it was maybe my sister's rabbit, and at the moment there is a beautiful big black white dog. So let's say the first answer.
The first answer, which is the one that the fewest people guessed. Never mind, that's great, fantastic. Right, I've got some suggestions already for the name of your baton. Broken Bob. Broken Bob, yeah. Quite a nice name. Batoni, like Tony, the name Tony, but bat in front of it. That's quite clever. I like that. And there's another one, it's a bit complicated. Merida, because it's the name of a character in the film Brave, and your baton must be very brave to be used when it's broken in a concert. So those are some lovely names. Thank you. Keep those coming. Right, where's our next question? A question from Nayan Shah. Mirga, was it really scary conducting at the Proms?
Good question. Good question. So, to be honest, the very first time, I went there together with the CBSO. Scary would not be the right word, but it probably was the biggest ever space I was conducting in. And maybe because of this hugeness of the Royal Albert Hall, maybe because of, it was also our first official project as the orchestra, the CBSO and music, the new music director. I remember I was quite tense in the concert as well. Although we had fantastic pieces and some Mozart, Tchaikovsky, and Abrahamson, great songs by him. But when we went there for the second time and had with us as a soloist Lila Josefovich, she played Stravinsky Violin Concerto. She said, during or after the rehearsal, she said something to me which was such a good point, and probably partly because of the second time and partly because of that advice, I just felt so much better. She said, you know, we don't have to worry about the big space and the last rows and projecting sound or whatever. Let's just feel good on stage and let's just be here for ourselves and just, this was such a good point. And I think, well, for me, I discovered this as a secret for that great hall. And so when we came back together for the third time and had some Weinberg, some wonderful British music with Sheku as well, this felt like already much more home than the first time.
There's some music out there on YouTube of you conducting, isn't there? Some video and recordings. Is there anything that you'd like to kind of point the children towards as things that they could go and watch and have some fun with?
I'm not sure if it's still there, but there was on YouTube something somebody did. The piece of myself conducting Beethoven at the Proms. And on top put Jingle Bells. So
so the soundtrack is Jingle Bells, but Mirga's conducting something completely different. There's lots of great stuff. The Proms are on, I think, still on YouTube. So if any of you want to go and watch her in action, it's all there. Okay, Jonathan, another poll for you. In lockdown, Jonathan hosts Zoom cooking competition judged by a professional chef, Zoom advice sessions for student and amateur conductors, Zoom baking sessions for hopeless bakers, or Zoom advice sessions for DIY hairdressing. Okay, so let's see. We'll see what people think, and we'll come back to that poll in a minute. Okay, Joshua wants to know, Jonathan, what is easy and what is difficult about conducting?
Great question. I suppose it depends on which way you look at it. I think we spend, I know Mirga, there's a huge amount of time learning the music. It's obviously amazingly exciting to conduct, but it's also a huge responsibility. And that process of putting the score in the head rather than the head in the score takes a long time. And that's the really hard work, I think. And then when you're conducting orchestras that are positive and wonderful like NCO, then our lives are so easy because everyone in the orchestra wants to play their best and wants to get the most out of it. And then the rehearsal process is just the most joyous thing possible. But I think for me, the tricky thing, or the thing that takes the most time and consideration, is that learning or the preparation. Because like with playing an instrument, if you do great preparation, then when you get on stage, it's so much more fun.
Brilliant. Right, we've got the answer to our poll, I think. So this is coming out very strongly. 51% think you're offering advice, conducting advice to student and amateur conductors. 21% think you're doing baking sessions for hopeless bakers. 20% think you are doing DIY hairdressing.
Thank you.
And only 7% think you're hosting Zoom competitions cooking competitions judged by a professional chef. So do you want to tell us what the answer is?
Well, it's a bit like Mirga. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. The answer is I'm hosting Zoom cooking competitions that are judged each week by a professional chef. So a few of my friends have got together. There are 7 groups or 7 individuals who are in their own homes, of course, isolating. And we meet every Wednesday at 6:45. and do like Ready, Steady, Cook or MasterChef style kind of competition for 1 hour. Each week has a different theme. And basically I've been on social media writing to lots of random, quite well-known professional chefs and asking them whether they'd come for like 15 minutes and judge our dishes. And so we've had someone who works for Gordon Ramsay, we've had someone who works at the Dorchester Grill Hotel, we've had one of the MasterChef finalists, actually, both from the professional and the amateurs, who've joined us, and it's been a lot of fun. And basically, of course, they can't taste the food, so it's all about presentation. And so this week, the theme was takeaways, and so my flatmate and I made a fish and chips. But what we did is we went to our local fish and chip shop and got like the wrappers and the bag that you put them in and the little wooden fork. And we didn't win this week, we came second, but you know, we put a lot of effort in. This is the highlight of my week at the moment, basically.
That sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds brilliant. Okay, so we've got another question from Kate, which is actually a question that a lot of children have asked a lot of our guests, Mirga. Was there ever a moment in your life when you thought you shouldn't be a musician?
Ah,
how do you know that you want to be a musician, I think is the question.
Good question. From time to time, such a thought or part of such a thought flies over, maybe, you know, rather, I guess, in the moments when you come out of a rehearsal and have a feeling you had really no idea how to lead the whole thing in the best way, and you saw frustrated faces, and which not always should be taken personally, but you know, everything we see in front of us standing there influences the feeling of, yeah, we're going the right way or the wrong one. But after such a moment, well, should I really be doing this and should I be going on? So far, it always passed. The feeling of, I love music and I love being in the group with great musicians making it. Exactly.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I'm going to do a little screen share now to show you guys what you've been up to, because a lot of you have been sharing amazing pictures of what's been going on in your lives and you engaging with our webinars. So it's really hard for us. So I'm just going to run through these and chat a little bit. It's really hard for us at NCO because we don't get to see you, and it means that we really miss you. So it's super valuable for us, and I think hopefully for all of you guys, to send in your little pictures of you guys showing us what you're doing, especially engaging with the webinars and showing us that hopefully you're enjoying the work that we're doing here in the way that we're doing it, because we can't be together. But it's such a shame that we can't be, but it is such a joy, really, honestly, from all of us at NCO to see that you are all having fun out there as well and engaging with the webinars. So thank you. Keep those pictures coming. And on our next webinar next week, we will share a few more of those. And this was a lovely one. This little boy whose viola was called Carl, and he was so pleased that we mentioned his viola on the webinar, that he sent in this little tweet to say that he's famous. So that's a little gem. I also wanted to say, as we're talking to conductors, these are all the conductors we had hoped to be working with this year at NCO. Some of them we would have just seen for a blink at regional rehearsals. And some of them you may see at later points, we hope, but they want to send you all their love because they are missing you as well. So we just want to send you lots of love really from NCO, and hope that we see you soon. And if you've missed any of the webinars, they're all up on YouTube. So you can go and visit, you can see messages from conductors, you can see all the webinars that we've done, they're all there. So if there's anything you've missed out, you can go and enjoy it again there. So there we are. And next week, our next webinar, we're going to be joined by musicians from the National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain. So I'll come back to that at the end of the session today. So that's the end of our screen share. So let's come back to our special guests and our questions. Now, Victor wants to know, Jonathan, who were your teachers or role models as a young conductor?
So, actually, one of the most important people who taught me about conducting was actually my cello teacher. Now, she never actually spoke to me about conducting, but the rules of making music and how disciplined you have to be and how hard you have to work, and a little bit, as Mirga's already spoken about, having quite a thick skin when you're standing up there sometimes on the podium. You know, we're just normal people too, and when we see people who look unhappy, as she said, we feel unhappy too, and we don't want it to be that way. And so she taught me an awful lot about that kind of dedication. And then otherwise, obviously my 2 years at CBSO, I had Mirga as a wonderful role model. I've also been mentored by Pavel Järvi in the last few years as well, which has been incredible. And his fun with conducting and his he's got a beautiful technique. He's really gorgeous to watch conduct. You want to make a gorgeous sound when you play for him. And actually, otherwise, the thing that I find amazing right now, actually, in this time where we're all reaching out to each other across these virtual platforms, is our colleagues. Colleagues are really inspiring too. And other young conductors, and just talking to each other, and we can all really learn from each other.
Great, thank you very much. Oh, another poll. If Mirga was not a musician, she'd like to be a dancer, a storyteller, a circus clown, a mime artist, or a yoga teacher. Okay, let's see what people think, and we'll find out what the answer is to that. Okay, Mirga, one for you.
Yeah, you too.
Sorry? Good, I'm glad you're enjoying them. Okay, so Thea has asked you, Mirga, is it hard to keep the tempo of the whole orchestra if people are going faster and slower than they're meant to be?
Aha. Good point. Good point. It can be a challenge. It can be quite a challenge, especially if, let's say, if I haven't done the piece often and I don't know it by heart and I haven't spent days and weeks with it, so that, you know, I don't have yet an idea, an imagination of tempo. This is it, and throughout the piece or throughout the specific spots. And if then this certain uncertainty meets the different ideas of different musicians, this can become quite a chaos. In the meanwhile, if I spend a lot of time playing the piece, singing it, analyzing it, yeah, just, you know, falling in love with that piece of music, I would say there is such a strong feeling of what is right for that part, or another part of the piece, that then it is still a challenge to stay open to what the musicians are doing and are proposing, because if they, for example, tend to play faster or slower, I think it is great to be open for the question, to stay open for the question, oh, maybe it's even a better idea for that part or that melody or whatever. But on the other hand, if I'm not convinced and I stay what I hear, what I imagine, I think we should be all going together, then I should just spot out, okay, that group is rushing, that group is too late or whatever. And this is quite a lot the question of experience as well, of this pointing out, and then you just try another time and maybe a few more times, and then you come there.
Great, thank you very much. So we've got the result of our poll, which says that 40% think you would like to be a yoga teacher, 31 a dancer, 13 a storyteller, 9 a mime artist, and 6% think a circus clown. So
these are actually all such great ideas. So there was again in my years in Graz in Austria, when I was studying bachelor there, I was amazed about this profession. In fact, there are people totally having this as a job, storyteller. And I spend a lot of time thinking, wow, this is such a great thing. Well, Kat is doing that a lot. I'm sure many of you have experienced her concerts where she moderates and is a great storyteller. But actually, I have to say, there is another answer which I hadn't thought of, which at the moment I like almost better. It's yoga teacher.
Great. Well, there's lots of choices. We've had that when Sarah Willis was on. She said to me in advance she'd wanted to be a travel presenter, but when I put a Blue Peter presenter up as a choice, she said, actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to do which is a similar thing. Great, fantastic, Mirga. We've found out a few more secrets. Okay, lots of people, Jonathan, have been asking, what is your most embarrassing moment as a conductor?
Well, it is quite embarrassing. So this is a secret because really not many people know this. So I was conducting at a very prestigious event with like lords and ladies and MPs and European politicians and things like this at St John's Square in London, this big church venue in central London, if you've not been there. And I suddenly felt about 2/3 of the program that my legs were a bit cold at the back. And for some reason, I'd obviously done some fairly outrageous jump or gesture, and I'd ripped my trousers at the back. And I couldn't do anything. I had like 2 more pieces to conduct. And I went off stage between the pieces, and I was like, I've definitely ripped my trousers. This is not good. I just had to go back on stage. Fortunately, it seems that due to the angles, not many people really noticed this, but the people in the front row, I was a bit worried. So that scarred me now. And every time I go on stage, apart from doing my hair, it's one of basically the first things I check.
Do you take a spare pair of trousers?
I really should, shouldn't I? Thanks, Kath. I'll make a note of that. That's not
the leader.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, when a violin soloist breaks a string, often they swap with the leader, as Mirga is saying. So maybe that's true.
You change. I
suppose it could be a dress, though. So.
Great. That's a pretty embarrassing one. Okay, Rebecca O'Shea has asked, how do you build a relationship with players in an orchestra that you're working with for the first time? Do you want to try that, Mirga?
I think trusting is the main word for the first time and for the second and for all the later ones. Because, you know, you just come in there and you have maybe never seen anyone in the space, or maybe yes, but and it's just about being open and trying to enjoy the situation and that experience, and trusting that you will definitely meet people who love music the same way like you do, and you know, that way it's so easy to go for the same goal.
I think that's quite often a common experience at NCO. Would you say that, Jonathan, that you're suddenly thrown together with all sorts of people that love what you love, and that it's as important to them as it is to you?
Absolutely. I think that's the key thing. And when you watch the great orchestras, like Mirga says, it's so obvious that each one of those players love what they're doing and know how amazing it is that that's actually a job. I mean, it's kind of crazy sometimes. I think that this is a job, but it's incredible.
Okay, I'm just going to remind you to get yourselves ready for the selfie in a minute, because we're going to be doing the selfie in just a little bit. But Jonathan, could you tell us, how do you actually practice beating time? I mean, we've talked about learning the scores and being immersed in the music, but what about the actual physicality of beating?
So, I mean, there are many different schools of thought on how to do this. Many different teachers that I've seen and spoken to have given so many different pieces of advice. And so, and I do believe there's a technique to conducting. There's a way of it being clearer or not clear. And I think so it's really important to practice. I actually spend a lot of time watching videos of myself conducting. And I mean, I don't know if any of you have ever recorded yourselves playing and listened to it back. Sometimes that's quite a hard process to go through. And I actually hate watching myself conduct. But then you can really see that. And then sometimes I've, in the past, especially when I was at the beginning, would look in the mirror, simple things like that, and just see, is that really clear? Can I make it clearer? But I think conducting is very hard to practice because it's really about contact with people. And your gesture is it's gestural communication, and that's different with every group. Every group responds differently. So a lot of it, I think, is about thinking on your feet and listening, actually, more than anything else. And then sometimes letting your body instinctively do the right gesture to help the situation, whether that, as Mirga says, like rushing or slowing, or something more detailed, more nuanced, or more about character. So I think it's a great question, but I don't know how Mirga feels, but almost every conductor has kind of found their own way to look at these things.
Fantastic, thank you. We've got a question, from Henry, for you, Mirga. Do your arms ever hurt after a performance?
They hurt after stressful rehearsals or concerts. Or I remember also the first time conducting a full opera, for example, Carmen, Bizet, 3.5 hours, something like that. The next morning I was always dead. But that trained, with doing the piece another time and third time and so on, you find ways to do things in a more efficient way. And that just means also less work for muscles. And that stress factor is also partly, I think to a big part, a training thing, because the point which we just had before, that joining in loving music, coming together to be there for the same goal, is actually such a great point, and it makes the whole thing so easy. Let's say. In the meanwhile, when we worry about is it maybe my thought, or somebody's unhappy or whatever, and somehow it becomes difficult to not forget that main goal. That causes then sometimes some pains. And
is it arms? If it's painful, is it arms, or is it shoulders and necks, or what is it that aches at the end of a big performance?
But mainly right arm and right shoulder, maybe because it works more.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Right, lots of people are asking, Jonathan, do you have a favorite period of music or a favorite piece of music?
Oh, that's so difficult to answer, because I think it really depends. I mean, for example, when I'm cooking, I love listening to Baroque music. It's just so much great energy, and somehow it just puts me in the right spirit. Then again, when I'm cooking, I also love listening to jazz and Keith Jarrett. So that maybe, but and I think it really is so mood dependent. Right now, though, I'm taking running really seriously for the first time in my life. And so I probably have one of the world's strangest playlists on Spotify, which is a combination of Sibelius, Strauss, Dvorak mixed with drum and bass and dubstep. And it's a very unusual mixture to run through, but it seems to work at the moment.
Oh, another poll. Brilliant. When Jonathan was growing up, he had 2 cats called Fish and Chip, Ebony and Ivory, Macaroni and Cheese, Sugar and Spice, or Peaches and Cream. Okay, so you can vote on this one too, Mirga, if you want. And I think a question for you, Jonathan. Which section of the orchestra causes you the most trouble? But be careful how you answer this. It's from Megan, and I haven't got her surname, so I'm not totally sure what she plays. So who knows?
Well, in what I tend to do in rehearsals, especially at NCO, which I'm not sure if any of you guys have had me yet, but is that I tend to pick on the cellos, because as a cellist myself, I feel quite comfortable giving them a really hard time. But you know what? It changes from orchestra to orchestra. Some of you won't know this yet, but I have a little bit of a musical punishment for kids who misbehave in orchestras, and it's become a kind of thing that happens on NCO now, and that's C sharp minor. And so what happened? And it's one of them. It becomes self-policing. So if someone's misbehaving or talking or has their phone out in a rehearsal, if I just say C sharp minor, you know what? Silence, because that person misbehaves, they have to stand up and play C-sharp minor in front of the whole orchestra by themselves. It's literally saved me hours of shouting at the groups. And so just be warned, everyone, practice C-sharp minor before the next course.
But having said that,
it's only with youth orchestras.
Yeah, I don't do that with professional orchestras, in fairness, yes. That's just with NCO.
but luckily we don't have to do that very often, do we?
No, exactly, no. It's a very rare occurrence.
Yeah, very, very rare. And even the hint of it. Okay, here we are. The poll is ready. Most people think your cats were called Fish and Chip, Jonathan. What were they called?
Well, it's actually my mum's idea, and I think she thought it was really clever, but she called them, as they were black and white, Ebony and Ivory.
Nice. So you had them as you were growing up, your whole childhood, did you?
I did, yeah. We've almost always had 2 cats in the house, and we now have a very beautiful Russian blue cat in the house, in my parents' house in Newcastle. But I've not seen it for some months now, which is very sad. But...
So we've got another question, nearly the last question, I think, from Octavia Mackey. What should I do if I want to be a conductor? Do you want to take that one, Mirga?
Continue making music and loving it, and just believe in this dream and burn for it. A lot of experience is important, so and if one day is not the most successful one, let's see what on the next day will happen.
We do have quite often slots at NCO when the children can have a go at conducting the orchestras, which is a great opportunity because it's quite hard to do that anywhere else. so that's quite a fun thing. How about you, Jonathan? What would you say? What should I do if I want to be a conductor?
I think Mirga says already, dream. You've got to dream. I think it's the only way that anything happens, and not to worry. I think I remember worrying a lot in life and realizing that actually worrying doesn't tend to bring anything. It's not really useful. And so, yeah, and get up in front of NCO when you have a chance. Take that opportunity. And it's amazing. Sometimes I'm out of a job sometimes. It's so good when someone gets up. And actually, if you've had no training, sometimes the gestures you make are so much more natural than what we do, because it's just such a human instinctive thing. And then that's very frustrating for us sometimes.
Great. Right, guys, it's time. We've got to the end. It's time for our webinar selfie. Okay, so I'm going to use my violin this time because I haven't done anything silly enough yet. So do you want to get your, Jonathan, do you want to get your pose? What's your pose, your webinar pose?
I decided to get a little Moroccan guitar that I bought in Marrakesh.
A little Moroccan guitar, brilliant. Mirga, what are you going to do for us today for our webinar selfie?
Animal.
Okay.
Better.
Horns, yeah, the horns is really good. I like the horns, yeah. Okay, so get your cameras ready, everybody, and I'll count us down. Are we ready for our selfie? 3, 2, 1. Great. Well, I hope we get some lovely selfies from that, so we can share them with you next week. So it just leaves me to say, next week at the same time, 4:30 on Friday, we're going to be joined by some musicians from the National Youth Orchestra, and they have a really exciting project running through half term, which we are going to be able to be a little bit part of. But it's all top secret until next week. So I've been told I can't share anything about it, and I can't even tell you who the musicians are who are going to be joining us, but that's going to be announced next week, and we'll be able to share that with you in an email. So make sure you're with us next Friday at 4:30 to meet the NYO musicians. And so it just leaves me to say a huge and massive thank you from all of us at NCO to Jonathan Bloxham and Mirga Gražinytė-Tyla for joining us today. Thank you very much. See you again.
Bye.